Double Duelist comps are incredibly strong in Valorant right now. So much so that even G2, notorious for their historically slow and info-centric style, have finally caved to play it on just about every map. And even against Valorant's world champions, they look amazing. But on Split, their Double Duelist looks a bit different from most. They're running Waylay and Neon. Alright, so it's important to note I started making this video before patches 12.05 and 12.06 were announced or live. Now that Yoru is dead, obviously this style of comp is a lot more common. G2 have also moved to a different comp on Split now. But I still want to cover this because a lot of teams are running this double dive look, but are showing much less nuance in how they make it work. Think of this video as a study in the comp more broadly. Anyway, back to the video. By now we're used to seeing things like Yoru Waylay, Yoru Raze, Yoru Neon, basically just Yoru and a Dive Duelist. Our Dive Duelist is responsible for opening up sites, displacing crosshairs and making space for the team, while our Yoru has fast rotations and flashes to clean up and capitalize. So what's the idea behind this comp? As our case study, we're looking at G2's debut of this split comp. They're taking on NRG in the middle bracket semis of America's Kickoff. It's a defense start for G2, where you might imagine a comp stacked into dives could struggle. Let's see how G2's defense stacks up. G2's game plan for defense starts out fairly simple. We've got a standard Viper orb in mid to hold it for quick rotations and a wall to cover both chokes at A. At the start of our half, Valen tends to play over at A and Trent towards B. If NRG want A, Valen just has to live and enable the flood while Trent clears B to confirm the stack. If they want B, they're either running into a stack against the Neon, or Trent can call the Duelists in to flood the hit. This macro approach relies heavily on info at B and in mid. NRG's comp is very good at post plants. Good luck defusing against all this util. Their extra drone on Tejo also gives them the edge in terms of the information game. Because of this, G2 have two main objectives. First, do not let NRG plant. Second, fight deep to control information. But how does that work in practice? As our match starts up, we get a good look at the way each side will be defaulting their util. For NRG, we have a Viper wall to generate passive pressure around ramp by blocking the Heaven and sight lines, and a recall start to passive pressure B main by threatening this cross. The idea is to win the information game by keeping G2 guessing around these two areas and hard pressuring mid. Like we said for G2, it's Valen to anchor site A and Trent scanning for info in B main to call rotations over. Jorg and Babybay are playing to fight initial presence at A or in mid and hold down Heaven in the event of a ramp move. The pistol starts fast. NRG sprint up mid with a smoke to cut off Mail and a flash to scout vent. No one's home, so mid's all NRG. Meanwhile, Trent's checked out B main and found it empty. Instantly, Jorg and Babybay set up across at vent, and Valen gives Leaf a star in Heaven if NRG push there. NRG have already spent hard, so they're holding these chokes to force NRG into an uncomfortable fight. NRG gets silly with it in vent, but Ethan gets just a bit too silly, so down he goes. NRG have confirmed 2 players in A Heaven, so it's off to B with a 3-1 split. Leaf's hearing all this noise, so he calls Babybay to help from CT. Brock drones through the Heaven smoke and pushes Leaf away. Heaven's been breached, and even worse, Leaf goes down. NRG now have 2 available pathings. They can go site or for spawn. They choose spawn and Babybay greets them. Unk still got it. Meanwhile, Jorg's recleared mid and gets a nice easy backstab thanks to Babybay's pressure. Poor old Scuba's only just gotten through B main, but there's no one left to pressure for him. Jorg's been mid, and Valen's got the A flank, so there's only one place he can be. Light work for G2's remaining players. Okay, let's talk about this map state. We're 5v4 and NRG are pivoting towards B Heaven. I love how G2 handled this situation. The smoke in Heaven forced them to commit hard if they wanted to pressure Leaf, which made Babybay's rotation easier. Since we said earlier that G2 can't afford a plant from NRG, we might expect G2 to stack site and have a late player hold spawn, kind of like this. But G2 are one step ahead of things. Instead, Trent and Babybay act as info for Jorg to set up his flank and flood on while NRG's plant is under pressure. If Trent spots commitment site, Jorg can flank. If BabyBay spots commitment in Z, Jorg can also flank. All of this is meticulously set up. The double fight at Vent and the hard choke smoke in B Heaven force NRG to commit their resources into Heaven and give Jorg the flank opportunity. It's fast rotations and early dominance in mid for G2. The anti-eco wasn't very hard, like at all. But we're in a snowball meta right now, so the bonus conversion is where the money is. What are G2 planning? We have a judge in Vent bolstered by the orb in mid, and BabyBay maintaining info around B main. A is still our weak side with just Valen sitting back site. The basic plan here is for Trent to set up BabyBay in B with that same early prowler, and then the team can centralize around mid. Going fast doesn't seem to be working for NRG at the minute, so this round's a slower one. The idea is to play slow and wait for a push and use their superior recon util to bait one out if G2 don't bite. It's another instant prowler and deep star B main for G2 this round. They did this last round to set up Jorg in main with a judge, but this time it's all conditioning. BabyBay's not even holding deep garage, but lo and behold, Kiko is terrified. Since Kiko's super scared at B, Ethan takes the initiative and dogs ramp with Scuba's wall to threaten possible lurks around here. This pulls Trent's rotation and sets up Scuba to lurk while NRG stack to hit B. Still respecting that deep option, Brock drones into main and BabyBay is pushed off. Leaf mollies to slow things down so BabyBay gets another shot before NRG's exec. And just like that, no entry for NRG. Just as Trent shuts down Scuba, NRG speed up to capitalize on BabyBay having fired. This salvo forces BabyBay off his line, so he pivots to set up a counter swing with Leaf. While those two are stalling, in comes Jorg to clean things up. And just like that, it's a bonus conversion with 4 men standing. First off, can we just admire this crossfire again? This is gorgeous. It funnels NRG players either towards backside where G2 can wrap them or to try and directly dismantle it, which sets up Jorg perfectly to throw his stun and fly in. Part of how G2 were able to confirm their rotations here so easily comes down to this conditioning in B main. Imagine if NRG had put in more effort to test that pressure, or gotten Kiko space to call rotations in. All of a sudden that Tejo drone will go a lot deeper and force BabyBay all the way off so he can't take that shot. Over at A2, look at this interplay between Trent and Scuba. At this point, NRG are rotating for B and Trent is reclearing ramp to make sure Ethan didn't set up a big lurk. He throws a haunt to clear top ramp and finds nothing. If you're Scuba here, you're definitely thinking, okay, I have a timing now. But you'd be wrong. Trent also prowls to clear bottom ramp. So now if you're Scuba, you're definitely thinking you've got some timing, especially since your team is literally hitting B right now. But no, Trent still handles you. And again, all of this comes down to G2 bullying NRG around to give themselves lots of time to react when NRG clear into space. Mid was completely open all round, and in B main, G2 still had a complete advantage over the info. Like we said, these are the highest value areas in the macro for G2's playstyle. NRG need to find a way to handle this. NRG take a timeout before their eco round, get smacked around a bit in round 4, and now it's finally time for our first full rifle round of the half. Let's think about how things have gone for NRG so far. 5-man rushing mid in a pistol didn't work, they just got hard choked. Playing super passive and just relying on drones to clear the extremities also failed. G2 had too much control of the macro. So this round for NRG is all about proactivity. They aim to fight back against G2 on the extremities. It's an early stun B main to set Kiko up and a dog to clear ramp. Already, Kiko's much more comfortable playing around B main here, and if he's not getting punished, it means G2's proactive side of the map must be somewhere else. Meanwhile at A, Jorg breaks the dog and makes sound running away, only to double back in with BabyBay to fight.
Same 5 poses for like 10 years, bro. He won Olympias. Drake can do what he wants, man.
The 2v2 doesn't go well. G2 now have no map control, so Leaf tries to make something happen around mid, only to fall into Marta's crosshair. Now that NRG have thinned out G2's options, they turn for A. Valen tries to make a hero play, but goes down after just 1 kill.
Quickly, you see the dash there over towards the spawn side. BabyBay's trying to get positioned, but he can't hold the angle with this up. There's a nebula in the way, and so... Fuck him, I'm just gonna...
Well, that was certainly ambitious. Despite BabyBay's ult, the 2v2 goes awry, and NRG put their first round on the board. So what is it that went differently this round? The main thing we've pointed out is that NRG put a little bit more oomph into their pressure around the map. They know that G2 will always re-clear somewhere when NRG takes space. Kiko had B main and nothing happened, and Mada was posted with an off on male, so Ethan and Scuba were ready for the swing to re-clear ramp. This round also marks NRG's first call on Valen's bluff with these deep stars. When NRG disrespected the stars here, Valen just recalled and placed a smoke here like normal. There was no trap. Now that G2's conditioning is getting dismantled, they'll need to develop their approach to the macro a little more. Since NRG have found a pretty big gap in G2's info, they opt to just 5-man A and switch up the pacing. They've picked a pretty good round for it too. G2 have reacted astonishingly fast to that gap and are playing Jorg at B to follow the Prowler again, along with deep stars on both sides to fake trap plays. Other than Valen, A is wide open. His survival is imperative to G2's early round macro plans, since it's all about the floods and heaven play, especially at A. Like we said, it's a fast A round for NRG. G2 set up Jorg in B main like normal, but there's nothing to find. It's a flash oversight and Mada bounding in to make space. He refracts and Valen catches Scuba trying to follow up. Even while he's saturated, Brock can't find the trade and Valen gets out, leaving the team in a comfy 5v3. Right here, NRG have nothing to work with. They have no space on the map, and down numbers like this, their only option is to fight. Ethan dogs into CT and stuns Valen to send in Mada, but Babybay's quick to cover. Now that ramp has been reclaimed, it's curtains for NRG's round. Valen did some unreal work this round, and it's worth looking at what his role is within the macro. Since G2's game plan around A revolves a lot around maintaining heaven and flooding in response to hits, Valen plays a pretty low risk game. He mainly sits around site level and only fights when a hit comes in. His pull and stun are mainly for deep traps and conditioning, while he tends to prioritize smokes that aid his survival on site. This round, it was this smoke around plant pot, which as we can see, messes with the attack's ability to trade from hell. He also likes to smoke mid-site here for the same reason. Valen's survival had another big effect on this round. By forcing NRG to look for an aggressive play in CT, he enabled Trent and Leaf to find this gorgeous timing at ramp. All they had to do was react to NRG pushing forwards and take the space behind them. Before NRG had even begun to react to Valen's play, G2 already had a plan to counter aggro in response. This round really demonstrates the importance of how G2 play their weak side as well. Keeping their anchor player alive and reacting to NRG's aggressive response is how they set up these floods and retakes so easily. NRG will struggle to make rushes work this half. In response, NRG decide to fight for mid control again. It's a standard 1-3-1 to send Mada up mid and take vent, before checking the extremities to scout for options. For G2, it's back to fighting for B main, and Babybay bolstering A with the op. NRG's ults are cycled in, so G2 want to fight deep to stop them from setting up. NRG lead with a salvo and smoke play to dash Mada through mid and use a dog to secure vent. Last time NRG rushed vent, G2's plan was to stall the chokes into either heaven side. NRG adapt by sending Brock to help in main and strengthen the B split. Since G2 have lost info in mid, Jorg looks to compensate with a push in B main.
Does he just take a... Does he find the kill? Yes.
Suddenly, it's only Kiko left in B main. Meanwhile, NRG take heaven and Leaf goes down. If Jorg goes unchecked, they can't really look to hit through heaven. Babybay would likely choke them again in spawn, and Jorg and Trent could set up a cross to isolate the fights. So NRG back up and join Kiko to send it through B main. Since NRG have no drone, they plan to use a recall Astrostar to swing into B main.
On some level,
There's no way, What?
In the end, it doesn't matter much though. B main's gone down, so Babybay rotates in and... wait a second. There's a handsome smoke. Valen set up a smoke which separates back site, front site, and site proper to empower Trent here and enable pressure on the plant. Unlike this more common site smoke, it creates improvised chokes here and here, both of which G2 can use to prevent the plant. Again, we can see some of the depth in the extremity play here. G2 are relying a lot on smokes like this to enable their flood-based play, rather than playing hard choke on the main exits with so little stall util. Since Trent has the cover of Babybay's op, he hunkers in here. Unfortunately, Babybay goes down and Mada intelligently wraps around Pillar to create a double swing into Trent.
I didn't even finish the sentence.
Me when I'm making things.
Ethan's ult secures the round by locking down Valen.
Gets up on that site now. Seekers will keep Valen at bay. There's going to be a belated swing to the left. Valen would have to. Oh, what a flick! Surely.
G2 did quite a lot nicely this round. It was a solid stack over at B and good B main control while NRG took mid. To me, part of the problem came when the fighting hit site. Babybay chose to rotate into heaven to care B main, but the highest threat to Trent here came from the pathing around Pillar. NRG had no smokes and a line from CT would have supported Trent much nicer by choking here and here. I also really like this position Babybay was holding while the team stacked B. Usually, passive pressure Viper walls would cut off this line too and force him into an uncomfortable spot, but Scuba's wall doesn't cover heaven, giving Babybay a nice spot to play where he can easily rotate away if it's a B hit. Since this round allowed us to show off this cool Astra smoke, let's take this time to talk about how Valen uses his stars this half. As we can see, he likes his family's deep stars around the space in main in the pre-round to threaten a deep play. Let's use the B main stars as an example. Because these stars are always there, NRG never know whether there's a deep play planned or it's just a bluff. Therefore, they have to respect them. If NRG push and Jorg happens to be here, they eat a stun and some judge shots. If G2 aren't planning a deep play this round, Valen can just recall them for later. Because of this star management though, it's hard for Valen to smoke these main chokes, right? Typically we see Astras using setups like this, with the smoke for main and a star to pull and stall the exec. But Valen doesn't have enough stars for that. That's no problem, because G2 are using more passive smokes like this site one anyway to set up floods, rather than hard choking the mains. This is part of the reason why they play their weak sides so weak, with just a site level smoke for survivability. It's similar to the Omen smokes we observed Boaster using in the Fnatic video, but with the extra layer of conditioning on top. Now that Omen's less strong, and Astra is taking more prevalence in the meta, this is something a lot of the better Astra players are doing to apply more pressure around the neutral space on the map. Look out for this kind of play when you're watching high-level matches with Astras. As we progress towards the end of the half, G2 are starting to lose their grip on B main. NRG are adapting to G2's pace around there, and in round 8, Jorg gets blasted early and loses that space. So it's time to switch things up a little. Valen takes B and G2's strong side becomes A. Now the macro plan is switched up. G2 want info around mid and A while B becomes the reactive side of the map where the rotations can go. Valen still has this deep star at B for conditioning. NRG are unlikely to predict this switch up and aggro at A now. With Trent over at A, it's a more typical look from G2 now. With your recon player at A, you have the ability to challenge or check the passive pressure around ramp, which gives more control over rotations when the round slows down. This space is important because it forks and gives the attack two potential pathings, so having consistent info at bottom ramp is a huge benefit. This is why it's much more common to see VCT teams running their Fade or their Sky at A. NRG are sticking to what feels good: rush mid, pressure B heaven, and reset. They have Astra, Teho, and Viper ults which they can use to set up a good exec and post plan. For G2, it's all about denying that exec attempt, especially at A where the Astra ult is super powerful.
So maybe Valen from the leadership is like, alright, well.
Scuba doesn't get to play this round. This little set play in A main sets Babybay up with a shiny new rifle and full info towards A. If NRG want any map control, they've got to win this push into mid and handle Babybay so he doesn't give G2 full spawn info. Their only other option would be to reactively speed up at B, but they don't take it here. They send a dog into mid to clear mail and set up Mada's entry, but Valen pulls in mid and Leaf lands the shot before he's stunned. This is a genius little mix-up since NRG are expecting a smoke here and aren't ready for a stall option to slow things down. No point peeking that again, so NRG look to vent. Trent's already repositioned onto a nice off angle and shuts that down too.
Alright, yeah, they didn't need a timeout.
It's a nice quick round to get the confidence back up. I like G2's proactive approach to this round. NRG had big ults to exec with, so the aggressive push into A meant G2 could establish good map control to counter those ults with the macro. Cutting out one of NRG's site options entirely really did the trick and gave G2 an Astra and Whaley ult combo for the retake if NRG went to their weak side. Now we have a pretty good idea of how this comp wants to operate. In G2's most successful rounds, the strong side is a very strong side, and the primary aim on the weak side is just to prevent a split through mid by holding heaven. This proactivity made it difficult for NRG to set up a decent default this half, and came with big macro benefits as well. All things said, the half ends up at 7-5. Now, G2 are on the attack, and this is where the double dive gets interesting. How is this meant to look? Remember what we said before about having one duelist who draws fire and another who capitalizes on the space? Well, in G2's case, Jorg is generally the former, and Babybay gets to clean up. Neon makes it hard to hold off angles, because what are you meant to do when this happens? For NRG, this means wherever the Neon is, that's where the danger is. What makes this comp so dynamic is that the duelists can switch roles quite easily. It doesn't always have to look like Jorg barreling in and Babybay following up. When G2 want to make a play in mid, Babybay often takes the lead because the double dash is good for fighting Vent, but when they're hitting a site, it's often Jorg to move first. It's not like the DRX Mosquito comp method, where the dive duelist always moves first to act as a sacrifice. What we want to look out for is how G2 set up their post plants and play the macro. This comp is built to exec and brawl, but holding in a post plant will require some proactivity. To open the half, we see how G2 want to make use of the Neon. It's a pistol buy stacked into the firepower with 3 sheriffs, and the plan is for Jorg to sprint around B and stir up threat there while everyone else pairs up to scout for NRG's reaction. Leaf is playing a more common Viper wall to threaten lurks into top ramp and around Vent. Notice how Valen and Leaf are playing super far back here. If Ethan reacts to Jorg's pressure by scouting A main, they can hide from his util and convince NRG the hit's at B. For NRG, it's a standard 2-1-2. Kiko is responsible for the anchor at B, while A has more catalytic agents. Instantly, Jorg goes sprinting around B main, and Valen recalls a star in heaven to fake the hit. This Neon sprint is deadly. Since the Neon can cross to this close wall so fast, there's always the threat of a double swing or just a fast slide to punish a deep player. As such, Jorg has generated a question mark here all on his own. For their troubles, G2 get a smoke and a salvo and hold 3 players over at B. G2 decide to stack A to exec. By now, the calls come in that the hit was fake. Marder likely noticed that Leaf doesn't have an orb at top ramp. He doesn't have one. So he and Ethan can play ahead of the wall to get early info. Ethan spots and G2 speed things up, but the double swing heaven yields big results. Spikes down, and if G2 move the site, NRG can just proactively take the space behind them to set up a good retake. Jorg instantly reacts by sprinting towards CT. If there are 2 players at ramp, then NRG are likely weaker over there. Leaf follows, but the problem is, Spike's still stuck at ramp. Jorg and Leaf have to make something happen over here. They fight the rotators and come out 2-for-1. Babybay gets Spike to site, and it's 2v3 for the post plant. NRG play this beautifully. They fast re-clear ramp to take the space behind Babybay, and Leaf's convinced they'll flank, but they quickly turn back to heaven and put their wall up to keep eyes on main. Babybay spots the cross, and suddenly Leaf's under massive threat. With 3 alive, NRG could have players in any of these places, so he's forced to move. Babybay's tough, but he's not quite that tough. This was a nice pistol idea from G2. We can see early on here the kind of threat the Neon represents. NRG did well to play forwards towards A because there was a gap in G2's info denial, and Jorg was known to be B, where he used quite a lot of his sprint fuel. It's also important that Jorg knew to sprint CT fast to capitalize on NRG playing so far forwards at A. This was pretty much G2's only option to win the round at this point. If he just took site and G2 got the plant down, they'd be dealing with a retake on 3 fronts. Fast forward to the anti-bonus, and G2 are trying their hand at mid. It's a 1-3-1 with Leaf defaulting at A, now with his trusty orb, and Valen holding over at B. Valen has his star deeper at B than Kiko did. Part of this is because this star is great for punishing players who try to push main, but G2 are also afforded more space in B main off the bat because of the threat of the Neon sprint. Oh yeah, and Jorg has a Bucky because he bought a hero Bucky last round. Nothing too special from NRG, but Marder is holding an Outlaw at A, which can one-shot Leaf if he makes a mistake. As the round starts, Valen recalls his star in B main and sets up 2 in mid. This double star setup is nice because it keeps the defense guessing. Usually one's a recall and the other's a full smoke, but the defense don't know which is which until they're used. G2 slowly work their way into mid, and Jorg spots Scuba. The team pounce to capitalize.
Angles with that relay bolt's a problem. He's at least able to do with the Prowler, Nova Pulse, and the kitchen.
Okay. Let's count that util. Yeah, that's unlucky, Scuba. So mid goes to G2, but NRG have made moves in the meantime. Ethan's blinded bottom ramp in response and found no one, and Brock reclears B main as well. G2 have mid, but the rest of the map is all NRG, and big question marks for G2. G2's response here is genius. Jorg snapped a rifle so he can now fend for himself, and the rest of the team cuts noise to check the extremities. Valen puts a star here in bottom ramp. This threatens a stun along with the wall and orb coming up to clear ramp and set up an A hit. By setting this up, the hope is to draw NRG players to A while the team rotates to hit B. Meanwhile, look at Jorg. He's making sprint sound cues and drawing attention in mid. He sprints to vent and draws Ethan in. At B, the bulk of the team prepare to reclaim main and capitalize. To be perfectly honest, I don't know why they didn't prowl this, but at least it's just a 1-for-1. Ethan goes to clear mid before turning to help at B and gets the jump on Leaf, but Jorg locks him in at male so he can't help the team. Valen finds a big kill on Brock and that's as good as round. Jorg doesn't have to do anything here, but he swings anyway and Mud is left in a 1v3.
It's safely back towards main, that duo on site with Valen. They did a good job getting in, but he's just caught straight up in the open.
Yeah.
This mid-round use of the neon equals danger rule is what I like so much about this round. I think moving A would have been a good move for G2 since Jorg sprinting around male made it hard for NRG's players to rotate and cover vent. The core concept though of using the neon to push fast in mid and then actively threatening those burst options before rotating I really love. This is the kind of creative approach you need to run this kind of comp. I also want to note the threat of these kinds of map states for future rounds. If G2 lean too hard in one direction, NRG will always have some form of reclear for both of the other lanes. This makes it really easy for NRG to proactively take space back from G2, so they need to be more careful about moving into space like this in future rounds. Although I did like the idea behind the star fake at A to threaten bottom ramp. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. G2 go again for a 1-3-1. NRG's money isn't looking great, and if they lose this round, they're reset into an eco, so G2 have a big set play planned to open up the round. As for NRG, Mod has got the off out and Ethan with him to help him hold down A main. Instantly, Valen smokes vent and stuns male, and Baby Bay flies in. This play is so amazing because it abuses the crosshair displacement Jorg can create and takes advantage of the fact Brock is expecting a smoke or recall here. Trent's Haunt also prevents Scuba from walking out to trade since he'll just get spammed when he's tagged. It's a great play to lead in an important round. Since the pick is so good, G2 goes straight into the B hit. But where's the spike? It's with Valen, who's solo in early B main. He can't really move on his own, so to make up for this, Jorg hard sends it through heaven with Trent's Prowler. Baby Bay gets the double swing from heaven for an easy trade. All the ruckus on site gives Valen his opening to move in. NRG's rotations are coming in fast. Baby Bay goes down trying to check heaven and Ethan dogs CT and finds nothing. He even gets to clear under Rafter, so NRG have great info setting up this retake. This is not an ideal post plan. G2 have no space to work with and NRG know they're all playing around pillar. Valen wants to smoke this star to let the team spread out and set up some crosses, but it's still on cooldown. Right as NRG util dump pillar, Valen's smoke comes up and they avoid a deadly combo. This smoke funnels NRG towards New Box, but G2 are one step ahead of them and a gorgeous double swing confirms the round.
Needs to be exposed to the world. Here comes Ethan, there he goes.
Absolutely gorgeous round. Beautiful. Amazing. I just love it. This set play to open up was such a great mix-up around Valen's default stars. I especially love the Haunt to cut out the swing from the Vent player. This season Saturate did great to cut out the Vent follow-up, and sending Jorg's sight while scaling Baby Bay Heaven was just amazing to set up that trade. Now, let's talk about the post plant. The initial post plant here wasn't ideal. Valen had planted safe, so playing off and in main wasn't an option, and because NRG owned Heaven so quickly, he was forced to run Pillar instantly after planting. No one had time to get back sight. By using the smoke just in time, Valen created an improvised choke point here and enabled G2 to spread out along front sight. Valen could hold the smoke, and Trent and Leaf double swung into the position that NRG will funnel towards to keep things proactive. In this game, G2 were really good to pull out their fast strats at key moments. This round was a swing round and reset NRG onto an eco, so it was a great time to pull out this incredible opening. From what we can see so far, their best looks on attack are rounds with fast starts and using Jorg to enable their aggression once things pause. This kind of round is why I love this comp and this team so much. For NRG's save round, G2 choose a fast hit at A. Since NRG only have money for classics, it would seem an easy enough round. But if we look at the map, NRG have gambled on this side. Things could easily get dicey. G2 lead fast with Jorg sprinting ramp and a prowl to cover his run towards site. As Jorg entries, he fast lanes through front site to cut out map and clear plant pot. Though he takes down Scuba, Kiko pops a familiar smoke to enable the trade. Babybay's entry on the other side of the fast lane also gets cut down by Ethan, who's sitting map. G2's double entry is down. Kiko manages to take Jorg's Judge and take down Trent, and Valen and Leaf reset to rotate B. This leaves guns on the ground for NRG to grab, but also gives G2 time to formulate a post plant on B. As Valen goes to plant, Leaf moves for CT to give him some extra info. He finds Brock, but the guy's miles away, so he resets for mid. Leaf has effectively scouted 2 out of 3 lanes completely alone in a 2v3. Valen now knows to be vigilant for the flank. Brock has only just realized that Leaf reset, so he's late to the party. He kills Leaf, but in a post plant against an Astra, he is doomed to fail.
Can't get it to half.
Yeah, Brock knows that. Frustrating. He wanted a half, and that's not happening for him at all!
NRG's gamble here was fortunate to go well, but there are some important things to learn from this round heading forward. First, we really get a good look at this anchor smoke on A in action in this round. Once G2 are aware of the gamble stack, look how trapped Valen and Leaf get by the smoke. With a more common smoke like this, Valen would be able to isolate fights by abusing the space in hell. While we're here, let's also look at G2's exec pathing. This fast lane is strong because it's hard for the defender to swing in and disrupt Jorg's pathing, and it completely separates front and back sight so G2 can isolate this space. Babybay's entry pathing is just intended to draw fire and act as a human drone. Since he has refract, in theory Babybay can scout this side of the fast lane quite safely, which both gives Jorg information on NRG's hold and buys him time to path around and encircle any players on site. It didn't quite go to plan this round, but the theory is definitely solid. As much as Valen got the big kills this round, Leaf is the silent hero of the round for the massive info he gave Valen in that 2v3. Now, Valen's a pretty smart guy. He knows that the A-Rush got annihilated last round, but he also knows NRG only stacked it as an eco gamble. He also knows that NRG are even less likely to play strong A this round. So this round, we go again. And just as Valen predicted, NRG are strong B this round to counter a B main move. G2 have some good ults for the exec, but NRG also have some great ults to retake with, especially this Cosmic Divide. NRG's plan is pretty solid this round too. They're playing strong around B main and completely retakey on A. This means that if G2 want B, they can try to fight and prevent them from even getting to use those ults in the first place. But if G2 want A, NRG can play off, wait for the ults to come out, and counter with an ult-heavy retake of their own. With G2 hitting the weak side, this one will come down to the post plan. Valen instantly Cosmic Divides across heaven and screens and stuns hell, and Jorg and Babybay entry just the same as last round. But this time, no one's home. G2 definitely can't afford a 5v5 post plant against a Cosmic Divide and Convergent Paths retake, so they have to get proactive. Babybay sends his ult through screen, but Kiko pulls here to prevent the push. Babybay and Jorg set up a double swing to stop NRG from setting up that retake. Jorg gets crazy with it, and we come out in a 3v2. Since NRG played off site, Leaf plays patiently towards main to counter a potential ramp re-clear, but Valen and Trent shut things down before he's needed. The main thing I like about this round is the call. Rushing A after getting atomized rushing A is a pretty cool idea. I think that G2's response to the 5v5 post plant could have been a bit cleaner though. Since Babybay had ult to reactively stall NRG at screen, it would have been strong to use that spare prowler to scout ramp and send some players heaven as NRG's retake pushed for site. This would give G2 priority getting to heaven for the late post plant and directly counter those big ults from NRG rather than trying to rush to kill. Regardless, it's really nice trading in this round, and I like Jorg and Babybay's little setup in CT here. By match's end, G2 have put NRG down 13-8, and at that emerge victorious over Valorant's world champions. At the time of writing this, G2 have pulled out plenty of interesting double duelist comps on near enough every map, and their creativity is simply astounding. Over the course of Santiago, I've seen so many new options from G2 on this map alone. If you're interested in seeing some of that in action, I'd recommend watching G2's defense against Nongshim. Are there any other G2 comps you want to see me cover? Let me know in the comments. That said, thank you very much for watching, and as always, I wish you a lovely day.